The first time the new kid called me a racial slur, I wrote it down. The fifth time, I gave him a warning. But when he put his hands on my throat in the middle of my chemistry lab, he made a mistake he could never take back. He didn't know that before I was a high school science teacher, I was Sergeant Coley. He didn't know I'd spent 20 years in the U.S. Army Reserve. He was about to find out. And in doing so, he wasn't just about to torch his academic career, he was about to ignite a fire that would engulf him, his powerful family, and the entire school district. This isn't just a story about karma. It's about the line between education and survival, and what happens when someone crosses it. Section 1, The storm gathers. For nearly 3 decades, I've dedicated my life to education. I've been a teacher, a school administrator, and eventually earned my doctorate in organizational leadership. My passion has always been making sure every kid, no matter their background, gets the best education possible. But my journey wasn't just shaped in classrooms. Before all this, I served for 20 years in the United States Army Reserve. That chapter of my life taught me discipline, situational awareness, and how to stay calm and decisive under extreme pressure. Honestly, these were skills I almost never needed in a school. Until the day Ethan Miller walked into my classroom. The school, we'll just call it Northwood High, is a good school with bright students and teachers who really care. But like any community, it had its issues. It's a place with a lot of privilege, where old money and new influence mix, creating a powerful sense of entitlement in some of the students. The Miller family was the poster child for this. Their name was on a wing of the library and a plaque in the gym. They were huge donors, and it was an unspoken rule that their kids were to be handled with care. Ethan Miller was their youngest, a transfer student in his senior year. From his very first day in my AP chemistry class, he walked around with this arrogant, superior attitude. He had that slick, predatory kind of charisma, and the other kids just seemed to fall in line, either because they admired him or were scared of him. I'd dealt with entitled kids before, it just comes with the territory. My strategy was always the same, keep firm, professional boundaries and focus on teaching. The first incident was quiet, almost deniable. During a lecture on covalent bonds, Ethan muttered something under his breath. I didn't hear it clearly, but a few students around him snickered, and a brilliant young black girl in the front row, Aaliyah, just froze. After class, I asked Aaliyah if she was okay. She hesitated, then quietly told me Ethan had whispered, I guess she'd know all about bonding, in chains. My blood ran cold, but my face stayed calm and professional. The military taught me to control my emotions, observe, document, and then act strategically. I went to my office and opened a new file. I typed the date, time, and exactly what Aaliyah told me. It was the first entry in what I started calling the Ethan Miller file. I didn't take it to the administration, not yet. I knew how that would go. It would be one student's word against the son of the school's biggest donor and get dismissed as a misunderstanding. I needed a pattern. The pattern didn't take long to show up. Ethan's disruptions became a weekly, then almost daily, thing. He'd ask these loaded questions, trying to bait me into an argument. Dr. Coley, he'd say with a smirk, are we sure these historical scientific figures are accurate? Seems like a lot of them aren't diverse enough. The irony, coming from him, was so thick you could choke on it. He was twisting the language of social justice and using it as a weapon to mock me. Each time, I'd calmly answer the question on its academic merits and refuse to take the bait. And each time, I'd go back to my office and add another entry to the file. Date. Time. Verbatim quotes. Names of students who were there. The file got longer and longer, a perfect record of his escalating aggression. The verbal jabs got more frequent. He never said them right to my face, but always just loud enough for me and a few others to hear. He was a coward, carefully testing his boundaries. During a lab, as I walked past his table, he muttered, affirmative action higher, to his lab partner. Again, I saw that flicker of shock and hurt on other students' faces. That night, I added another entry. The file was now several pages long. I knew I was walking a tightrope. The reality for many black educators is that you're constantly fighting this kind of sneaky racism, and it's a lonely fight. We're often told we're being too sensitive when we call it out. I knew if I went to the administration without an ironclad case, my own professionalism would be questioned, especially when weighed against the Miller family's influence. The final straw before I took action came when his behavior started to compromise lab safety. We were working with corrosive acids. Safety rules are not optional. I had told everyone, repeatedly, to wear their splash-proof goggles over their eyes, not on their foreheads. And then I saw Ethan, leaning over a beaker of hydrochloric acid, his goggles sitting on his hair like a headband. "Mr. Miller," I said, my voice low but firm enough to cut through the lab's chatter. "Goggles over your eyes. This is your final warning." He looked up, a sneer playing on his lips. "Relax, Dr. Coley. It's not like I'm going to drink it. The vapors alone can damage your corneas. Put them on now, or you're out of this lab with a 0 for the assignment." For a split second, I saw pure rage in his eyes. The mask of the charming bully slipped. He was challenging me in front of the whole class. He slowly, deliberately, picked up his goggles and put them on. The entire class seemed to let out a quiet, collective breath. It was a small win, but it felt like a shift. He'd been forced to obey my instruction in public, and he hated it. That was the day I decided to act. My file was now a damning record of harassment and insubordination. I requested a meeting with Principal Thompson and attached the file to the email, encrypted and password protected. Section 2, the administration's betrayal. The meeting was for the next afternoon. I walked into Principal Thompson's office and immediately saw I'd been set up. Sitting in the chairs across from his desk were Ethan's parents, Marcus and Eleanor Miller. My heart just sank. Thompson had ambushed me, sharing my confidential report with the very people it was about. Principal Thompson, a man who seemed to have a spine made of jello, gave me a weak smile. "Dr. Coley, thanks for coming. I thought it would be productive to have the Millers here so we can all talk about this openly." Marcus Miller, who looked like he was sculpted from granite and arrogance, gave me a tight, condescending smile. "Dr. Coley, we've read your novel. It's quite the work of fiction." Eleanor Miller, draped in designer clothes, clutched her pearls. "Our Ethan is a spirited boy, but he's not a racist. We raised him to respect everyone. I think this is all a profound misunderstanding." For the next hour, I got a masterclass in gaslighting. They picked apart every single entry in my file. Ethan's slurs were just jokes taken out of context. His defiance was the sign of an inquisitive mind. Aaliyah's report was hearsay from a sensitive girl who probably has a crush on him. Me enforcing safety rules was me singling Ethan out and creating a hostile learning environment. I calmly and methodically shot down every point, referencing dates, specific words, and the clear pattern of behavior. I spoke like I was in a formal inquiry, sticking to the documented facts. I was a soldier in a hostile debriefing. Then, Marcus Miller played his ace. "You know, Dr. Coley," he said, leaning forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "we're heavily invested in this school's success. We're chairing the capital campaign for the new science center. It would be a real shame if potential donors felt the school's environment was unstable, or that the faculty wasn't aligned with the school's best interests." The threat couldn't have been clearer. This wasn't just about his son, it was about his power. He was telling me, and Principal Thompson, that my career was disposable, but his money wasn't. I looked at Principal Thompson. He was staring at his desk, avoiding my eyes. He was caving. He saw the path of least resistance, and that path meant sacrificing me to keep the Millers happy. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," Thompson finally mumbled, "I'm sure Dr. Coley will reflect on this. And Ethan is a good boy. I'll chat with him about being more mindful. I'm sure we can all move on. And that was it. They were burying it. I stood up, my movements precise. Thank you for your time, Principal Thompson, Mr. and Mrs. Miller. My voice was even, betraying none of the rage boiling inside me. As I walked out, Eleanor Miller got in one last shot. You know, Doctor, she said with fake concern, maybe you're just not used to dealing with students of Ethan's caliber. It can be a difficult adjustment. I didn't turn around. I just walked back to my classroom, her words confirming what I already knew. The system that was supposed to protect me had just decided I was the problem. The administration had failed. The next move was Ethan's. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, this meeting hadn't humbled him. It had empowered him. He now thought he was completely untouchable. And an untouchable man is a dangerous one. The week after that meeting was weirdly quiet. Ethan was the perfect student, polite, attentive, following every rule. But it was the quiet of a predator stalking its prey. He'd watch me with this little, knowing smile. It was the smile of someone who'd already won. He knew his parents had shut me down and that the administration was on his side. He believed he had total power over me, and he was loving it. You could feel the tension in the classroom. My AP chemistry lab was thick with unspoken fear. Everyone knew a final showdown was coming. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. The lab was buzzing with activity. We were doing a titration experiment, a process that requires absolute focus. Students were in pairs, carefully adding drops of sodium hydroxide to a vinegar solution, waiting for it to turn that perfect, faint pink. I was walking around the room, checking on everyone's progress. I stopped at the table of Aaliyah, the same student who'd first reported Ethan's racism. She was a gifted chemist, but today her hands were trembling. Her lab partner, in a move of either stunning incompetence or deliberate cruelty by the administration, was Ethan Miller. Everything all right here, Aaliyah? I asked gently. She nodded, not looking up. Yes, Dr. Coley. We're almost there. Ethan leaned back on his stool, arms crossed. Yeah, we're doing great, Dr. Coley. Aaliyah's a natural. You must be so proud. His tone was pure poison. He was mocking both of us. I ignored him. Your titration looks good, Aaliyah. Just be careful not to overshoot it. As I turned to move to the next table, Ethan's foot shot out and hooked my ankle. It was a petty, childish move, but it was also a calculated, physical attack. I stumbled, catching myself on the lab bench. A few glass stirring rods rattled. The class went dead silent. Every single eye was on us. I straightened up slowly. My heart rate was steady. My training took over, pushing the anger down and replacing it with cold, clear focus. I turned to face him. Is there a problem, Mr. Miller? He looked up at me, his face a mask of fake innocence. Whoops. Sorry, Dr. Coley. My leg must have slipped. This was it. The final provocation. He was testing me in front of my students, in my lab, the one place that was supposed to be a sanctuary of order and learning. Stand up, Mr. Miller, I said. My voice was no longer a teacher's. It was a command. He hesitated. The smirk on his face faltered. He didn't expect this. He expected me to be flustered, to give him a detention slip his parents would just make disappear. He didn't expect a direct order. Slowly, he stood up, a defiant look creeping back onto his face. You are done in this lab for today, I continued, my voice hard and level. Go to the principal's office. We'll discuss this later. He laughed. A short, ugly sound. You can't kick me out. My father pays your salary. You work for me. Get out, I repeated, and pointed to the door. And then he crossed the line. The one there's no coming back from. With a speed that surprised me, he lunged. He didn't push me or shove me. He grabbed me. His hands closed around my throat. Time seemed to slow down. I could feel the pressure on my carotid artery. I saw the looks of pure terror on my students' faces. Aaliyah screamed. I could smell his cheap cologne and see the raw hatred in his eyes. He thought he could physically dominate me into submission. He thought I was just a teacher. He thought I was a victim. He had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He didn't know I'd spent 20 years in the military. The second his hands touched my neck, 2 decades of training took over. My response wasn't driven by anger or fear, it was pure muscle memory, a sequence I'd practiced 1,000 times. First, secure the grip. My left hand clamped down on his right wrist, my thumb digging into a pressure point. My right hand hit his left wrist at the same time. This stopped him from tightening his choke. Second, create space, break posture. I didn't try to pull his hands off. Instead, I stepped back with my right foot and rotated my body hard to the left. This used his own forward momentum against him, twisting his arms and shattering his balance. He stumbled forward, his grip already broken. Third, establish control. As he lurched past me, I didn't let go. I kept control of his right arm, spun with him, and stepped through with my left leg, getting behind him. In one smooth motion, I wrapped my arm across his chest and locked his right arm up behind his back in a compliance hold. My other hand went to the back of his neck to control his head. He was completely immobilized, bent over a lab table with his face inches from a beaker of that perfectly titrated, faint pink solution. He was breathing hard, shock and panic dawning in his eyes. He tried to struggle, but he couldn't move. The hold is painful, but it's designed for maximum control with minimum injury. The whole thing, from him grabbing my throat to him being neutralized, took less than 3 seconds. The lab was silent, except for Ethan's ragged breathing and Aaliyah's quiet sobbing. I held him there, my heart a steady drum. I leaned down, my mouth close to his ear. My voice was a low, dangerous whisper. You put your hands on me, I said, each word a chip of ice. You made a choice. Now you face the consequences. I looked up, scanning the room. My students were frozen, staring with a mix of terror and awe. I made eye contact with a level-headed kid in the back named David. David, I said, my voice now calm and authoritative again. Press the red emergency button on the wall. Then call 911. Tell them a student has assaulted a teacher in room 212. The suspect is restrained. David snapped out of it, his eyes wide, and did exactly as I said. I looked back down at Ethan Miller. The arrogant bully was gone. All that was left was a terrified kid, trapped by a force he never knew existed. He wanted to show everyone who was in charge. In 3 seconds, I gave him his answer. The explosion had happened. The firestorm was just beginning. Section 4, the aftermath. The piercing shriek of the emergency alarm finally broke the silence. For me, it wasn't a sound of crisis, it was the sound of order being restored. I held Ethan pinned, the pressure on his arms steady. He'd stopped struggling, his body rigid with the shock of someone whose whole world had just been blown apart. Everyone, please step away from your lab stations, I commanded, my voice calm. Move quietly to the wall by the door. They did, moving like they were in a dream. The first person to arrive was the school resource officer. He burst through the door, hand on his weapon, eyes wide as he took in the scene, me, in my professional work clothes, holding the school's golden boy in a military-grade restraint hold. Dr. C. What in God's name, he stammered. Deputy, this student, Ethan Miller, initiated an unprovoked physical assault by grabbing my throat. I utilized a non-lethal restraint to neutralize the threat. He is not injured, I reported, my tone as flat as if I were giving a mission debrief. Just then, Principal Thompson skidded into the room, his face pale and sweaty. He saw Ethan, and a look of pure horror washed over him. "Let him go." "What are you doing?" he shrieked, his voice cracking with panic. He was watching his career, and the school's funding, evaporate. "Negative, Principal Thompson," I said, my voice hardening. "This is now a crime scene. This student committed felony assault. He will be released only into the custody of law enforcement." When the local police arrived a few minutes later, that settled it. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Jennings. Can you tell me what's going on?" the senior officer asked, his eyes assessing everything. I repeated my report. "This student physically assaulted me. The entire class witnessed it. I acted in self-defense to restrain him." As Jennings questioned me, his partner started talking to the students. I could hear their hushed, terrified voices confirming everything. "He just attacked her. She told him to leave, and he just went for her neck. She didn't even hit him, she just twisted him up." The paramedics arrived and insisted on examining me. Bruises were already starting to form on my neck. As I gave my official statement, Marcus and Eleanor Miller stormed in, their faces masks of pure fury. "What is the meaning of this? Get your hands off my son!" Marcus roared at the officers. "He's the victim here. This woman attacked him. Oh, my baby. Are you hurt?" Eleanor cried, rushing to Ethan's side. "We're calling our lawyer. This school will be paying for this for the rest of its existence." Officer Jennings held up a hand. "Sir, your son is under arrest for assaulting a teacher. Multiple eyewitnesses have already corroborated the story." "Eyewitnesses? They're children. She intimidated them." Marcus bellowed. "I want to see the security camera footage. Now. It will show you what really happened." At that, a slow, cold smile touched my lips. "Yes, officer," I said, turning to Jennings. "I would also like to see that footage. I think you'll find it very illuminating." The district had recently installed a brand new, state-of-the-art surveillance system in all the high schools. High-definition cameras with crystal-clear audio in every classroom.